Nigeria debt set to hit 81 trillion naira following the unification of the exchange rates. And of course, Nigeria inflation rate has jumped to 22.41% in May. That is, of course, higher than 22.22% that we had in April. Welcome to Business Daily. I am Yusuf Akogo. We take our top stories. Glad to have you back. Now let's bring you up to speed, of course, up to date, I beg your pardon, with the stock market update from what we had yesterday. Of course, the market closed in the negative territory yesterday, 1.32%. It went down yesterday. And of course, the index lost over 500 billion naira yesterday to come down to 32.2 trillion naira. And of course, the volume of trade 1.17 billion naira. And of course, in terms of value, 15.359 billion naira. And in the deals there, 12,000 rather 611 deals exchanged hands among investors on Thursday. Of course, you know, the market has been on a bullish run for a very long time, and yesterday it's applied break because of probably profit taking from investors. There we look at the gainers for the day quickly. We see the like of Total gaining over 300 naira there and 70 kobo to close positive at 10%. And of course, if you go down, MRS also from the oil and gas sector gaining 68 naira 75 kobo, also 10% there. And of course, Transcohort gaining 13 naira 31 kobo to close also at 10%. And of course, on the loser side, we have the likes of Sanoaso rather losing 45 kobo there, also down there 10%. And of course, Cornerstone Insurance losing 1 naira and 2 kobo there. Of course, Mark Nichols from the industrial sector losing 9.33%. Of course, the top trade for the day are all on the banking sector. United Bank for Africa, Access, and of course, Fidelity Bank. UBA doing over close to a 200 million volume of shares, 193 volume. And of course, Access Bank there, 122. And of course, Fidelity Bank, 103 volume of shares, respectively. Moving on to the sector's performance. Of course, the banking sector down 4%. Of course, this, like we told you earlier, is as a result of profit taking by investors in that sector. Industrial sector is also down in red. Consumer goods down. Oil and gas, the only positive we're having on the log today because of the performance of corn oil and of course MRS in that sector. Of course, insurance is also down. We are having like 1/4 today. Not so good for the market. We hope that we'll have a rebound at the close of business today. The rest of Africa, we are seeing in Johannesburg, the market closed positive 0.6% from Southern Africa. GSE in Ghana, our next door neighbor, also closed positive there, 0.13%. And of course, down there in Nairobi, in Kenya, the market is negative 0.99%. It's like 2/2 from what we are actually looking at today in Africa. Of course, we'll give you updates as the market closed today. But right now, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to go into a very serious discussion on this morning. We'll look at how the MSMEs have been fed, are doing so far in Nigeria. And of course, we have somebody who should know in the studio today. Don't go away.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
Glad to have you back. It's the Business Daily right here on Trust Television. Now we're going into our discussion. The role of SMEDAN, of course, in the management of small and medium enterprises in Nigeria. And we have in the studio the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of SMEDAN, Mr. Olawale Fasanya. Glad to have you on Business Daily today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, let's go straight to the point now. Some of the SMEDAN is actually established to address the issues with SMEs, as the case may be. Tell us, how far has it been for you so far? You've been in the saddle for over a year now.
Well, thank you very much. I've been in Saudi for over a year, but I'm not new. I've been with SMEDAN since inception. So, it's a familiar territory. But for the past 1 year, what we have been doing is to rejig our programs to meet the demands of the moment. We know the usual challenges that MSMEs are confronted with, and these challenges are increasing by the day due to a number of factors. The recent survey that we conducted with Bureau of Statistics put at the apex of the challenges issue of power, followed closely by issue of funding, and then technology. So the issue of power, which is a major area that MSMEs say is affecting their businesses, is not what the agency alone can tackle. This is a national problem, and I know that the government is doing all it's could to provide infrastructure generally, for people in business. But as an agency, we feel that there should be certain things that we also do to ameliorate the situation. And what are we doing? So we decided to do what we call provision of common facilities for SMEs. So if there are common facilities, it will reduce the amount of capital they are investing in infrastructure. So if you have common production facilities that young graduates that want to go into business don't need to start thinking of how to have their own workshop. They can come there and produce and then take it to a showroom somewhere, so it will reduce their capital input. That is number one. Number two, common facilities are shared facilities. It means you can come there and enjoy share power. So you don't need to invest in buying a generator. It means when you come there to outsource, you are just maybe putting your money into raw materials that you will use to produce. You are not paying for workshop, you are not paying directly for power, and there are other things, sources. So it will really help MSMEs. And we cannot do it alone. we're a government agency funded through budget. So what we are looking at is playing a lot of advocacy role, go to state governments, let government now invest in common facilities, especially with the fuel subsidy removal. It means that SMEs will go through a lot if they want to provide their own power. So, but if there are common facilities in terms of storage, in terms of production, in terms of all those areas that will make our MSME more competitiveness, it will really help. So I'm using this medium to also appeal to different state governments, local governments. Let's think this way. It will help SMEs. So that is what we can do as an agency in terms of power. And to demonstrate that, at our new head office in Idu, we have a state-of-the-art common facility for furniture makers. We didn't just choose furniture. It's as a result of a research by African Development Bank that says for Abuja environment, there are a lot of small-scale furniture makers. So people can take advantage. Once we launch the equipment, it means young people that want to go into furniture can come into our Industrial Development Center at Idu, where we now have our head office, to produce. So they don't need to have their own machines. They can just book space. You want to come and produce this, you can come. It's computerized. You can come with your designs, put them in the computer.
Is it free?
No, it's not going to be free, so that we'll be able to sustain it. We're going to partner with a private sector facility manager or what we call special purpose vehicle, so that people will pay but at very reduced rates because it's shared facility. So we just for a little revenue back to government, and then we use the funds to maintain the machines, to pay the people who operate the machines, so that it will be sustainable. So it's going to be at very, very reduced rates because we are not out to make profit.
Now, interesting. Now, you mentioned earlier that the success of your agency depends on the support from the government. So I want to ask, how much of the support are you getting from the federal government and, of course, the state government that you are actually reaching out to?
Well, we're getting a lot of support. The agency itself came into being as a child of necessity because before SMEDAN came on board in 2003, there's no coordinated attempt at enhancing MSME competitiveness. There have been various attempts, but it's not coordinated. So when we came on board, we were established to coordinate all these efforts. There are a number of agencies doing one thing or the other to enhance the competitiveness of our MSMEs. But we are now at the middle, and that is why when I came on board, part of my immediate effort is to make sure that we work with all relevant agencies. So we go into partnerships. For example, we have partnership with Export Promotion Council. So if your products are ready to go into export or to take advantage of the AFCFTA, we have an agency to partner with. So it will not be us alone. About funding, just 2-3 days ago, we were in Lagos. We signed MOU with First Bank. We signed with Sterling Bank. We have a matching program that we have money with Jais Bank, and we are going to other banking institutions to see how we can partner. And what we do with matching fund is that we bring money so that we now use our money to de-risk the one that the bank will match with us. So that we are starting with the agri sector. People in agribusiness can access between 500,000 and 2.5 million. And we believe, most raw materials are from that sector. And then most of our people are farmers. What can we do to help them? So they can get these loans at single interest because we are using our money to reduce the interest rates.
Interesting about this issue of funding has been an issue for MSMEs in Nigeria. Several interventions seems not to really have worked. But this one that you actually trying to partner with banks and all of that, what framework do you think can be different from what we had in the past that make it easy for MSMEs to access funding? Because most of them, their complaint is lack of access to credit.
Yes, because the funds are there. It's access. And that's the word you have just used. And that is why I said, because the problem is that most SMEs, you know, the businesses is risky to put money. And then most of them, most times, you know, when they get money, they find it difficult to pay back. So, and that is why banks don't want to touch them, especially the nano and the micro businesses. For the small and medium businesses, they are attractive to banks because the medium businesses, their turnover is up to about 1 billion. But the one-man businesses, the tiny businesses that do not have collateral, you know, nobody wants to touch them. And that is why the agency had to think out of the box. And that's why we came up with a program like Matching Fund. That's why we came up with a program that is called One Local Government, One Product, where we look at products with competitive and comparative advantages in different local governments, and then we form people into cooperative, those that are in the same value chain. Then we use our money to get machines for them and give them little working capital. And then they pay back 70% so that other people can benefit and without interest. You know, and for the one-man businesses, we also came up with what we call conditional grant scheme. So the conditional grant scheme, we look at businesses that their capital base is no more than 20,000, 30,000, and then we give them 50,000. We don't give the money to them directly. We put it in the bank, and that makes them bankable. And then we register their business with CAC at a reduced rate so that they now become formal, because most of these one-man businesses are informal. Some will remain informal because of the nature of their business. Absolutely. But the ones that have potential for growth, we identify them and then we formalize them.
This is a sector that, according to statistics, employed over 41 million Nigerians as it is. If you go to the other countries in Europe and America, you see that MSMEs are actually the bedrock of their economy. So what do you think we can actually learn from the way things have been done in the rest of the world?
Well, even in Nigeria, they are the bedrock of the economy because they are providing over 80% of the employment. And then in terms of
sustainability is a problem.
Yes, I know. In terms of contribution to GDP, it's about 50%. So it's high. The only area that we have concern is that the contribution to export is just 6.8%, which is still abysmally low. So we are not doing something differently. Most of our programs are fashioned, you know, based on best global practices. So we are not inventing the wheel. When the agency came on board, we understudied a number of countries that have similar, you know, economy like our own. And that is why we now, you know, make sure that our programs are need-based. And these days, we are not thinking from the supply side alone. We do programs based on the demand side, you know, so it's helping us. So we look at the trend in other countries of the world, and that is what we try to replicate, you know. How
receptive are our own SMEs to some of these innovations?
No, they are highly receptive, highly receptive. The only problem we have is that when you put 10 SMEs together, 9 of them will tell you their problem is finance. But we try to let them know that this is not just finance. Why is it that you get all the money and your business fail at infancy? You know, Nigerians are funny. They do business based on perception. My neighbor is buying cars. He has a poultry. I want to go into poultry business. You know, it's not usually the case. Absolutely. You don't know whether it's the children abroad that are sending the cars. It's not from the business. Absolutely. So we try to let people now know that you need to build your capacity. You need to take advantage of the digital space. And this is where we are now concentrating. And what we are doing differently again is we are de-emphasizing classroom capacity building. We want to do what we call business development support, you know, programs. So we ask our officers to go to the marketplace, visit people where they are doing the business, ask them questions, provide advisory services. You've been able to access loan. Why is it that you are not paying back? Is it because your product is not good enough? Is it the problem of packaging? And by the way, we are also having common facilities for packaging. So if you are an SME, you have good products, your problem is packaging. You don't need to invest so much in getting packaging machines. Then you can come to our common facility and do your packaging. So it will also help. so that the products can be competitive and can be attractive to both local and international markets.
Interesting. So let's look at a new government is in place. I think over 3 weeks now, the new government has spent in office. And what part of the promises when they were coming during the campaign was to create jobs. And the president has indeed remained on that track. To what extent can your agency be of help to the new government?
Oh, seriously. Like I just mentioned to you, if you are a one-man business, by the time we inject little funds into your business or we build your capacity to be able to be more competitive, it means you have the potential to engage another one person. So if within, like somebody who is producing groundnut oil, the capital base is 20,000. If we give you a grant of 50,000, it means you can buy more groundnut. It means you can produce, if you are producing 2 gallons a day, it means you can produce 3 or 4 gallons. So it will get to a state that you can no longer manage it on your own. You will employ one person. So you are creating employment. The person you are buying from is also selling more.
But that's in the
so
informal.
you are also creating indirect.
That's in the informal sector.
Yes, because for us, it's not about, we are not looking at white-collar jobs. We want people to produce. We want people to be their own employers of labor. So like I told you, we have common facilities. You are a young graduate. You have not invested in a workshop. You have not invested in machines. You have a place you can go and produce. You will need marketers. So it means you employ 1 or 2 people to market your products for you. That is creation of employment. So when you're talking about creating employment, it's not just about the industry hiring people.
Why I asked that question is because government also need revenue. And when you're creating an employment, especially in the informal sector, sometimes it's difficult to tax these people.
No, it's no longer difficult. Especially when you do business with corporate bodies, when the big ones are outsourcing from the small ones, you can't hide from the tax net. Especially once you are doing, once you are formal and you go to the bank, you are saving money in the bank, you are buying from the market, it's easy to track these days. You know, our problem is more about multiple taxation. That is what our SMEs, you know, are complaining about. Exactly. So that there won't be federal inland revenue, the state will have, then local government, and then some people will tax you on the road, you know. So these are, most SMEs are not running away from tax. What they are running away from is multiple taxation. So we should get this right. You know, there is no way, once you become formalized, there is a way to get them into the tax net. And the SMEs are ready to comply, especially now that a lot of dividends of paying tax will be seen. You know, if we have good roads and then power is stable and all that, you know, people will willingly pay tax.
Absolutely, interesting there. Now let's look at what other interventions do you think this government need to bring into the SMEs now? Like the former government, so many were actually introduced, but to some extent the implementation maybe was not really 100%. As it were. So what other things do you think this new government can do for us to have a robust implementation of some of these interventions?
Well, like I said, I still want to go back to the issue of common facilities. It's very, very key. Because once we do this, you know, you will be surprised, you know. And this no federal government alone cannot do this. That is why I kept mentioning state governments, even up to local government level, you know. And then we're also looking at if the states are ready to partner with us, we want to have business information centers in all local governments so that people can walk into those business information centers and get information they can use, you know, to run a business or to start. And then we will also look at the issue of if government can come up with a credible guarantee scheme. So if there's guarantee scheme, banks will be willing to loan to SMEs because they know that if they default, that is not due to their own fault. For example, if there's natural disaster, You're a farmer that is flooding, where do you run to? Banks want their money back. So if we have a credit guarantee scheme that can reduce, what the bank will lose or that they can resort to when there are such issues, it will also go a long way. So these are some of the areas we believe will really assist MSME. Once we get infrastructure right, see, a lot of Nigerians are resourceful. Innovative.
Absolutely.
Yes, we go out, we see good products, but most of them are not competitive. They cannot compete with the imported ones. Another area we can look at is things that our SMEs can produce. Anybody that's importing them should pay a little more tax, which can be put into SME development.
Absolutely.
That will really go a long way. So that if you are importing toothpick, for example, and we can produce it here. So if you are paying a little more tax on it, that can now be injected to those that are producing it in Nigeria, it will discourage importation of such products and will enhance the funding that is available for SME development. These are some of the areas.
So, interesting submission there. Time is always not on our side when we're having fun. We have run out of time. We want to thank you, Director General, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, Mr. Olawale Fasonya. Most thank you for coming on Business Daily.
Thank you very much.
We hope whenever we call you again, you'll be ready.
Oh, yes, I will be willing to come and let you know how we are doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, and it's on that note we wrap up the show for the week. Join us on Monday for more. I am Yusuf Akogun.